Hey everybody, it's time for us to start planting up the pots that we put along our driveway. This is something that we started last year and it was a lot of fun. It was a good way for us to experiment with different plants and also try kind of these bigger pots and see how they go. Ended up they were so much easier than small containers. And so the containers we have here are about 23 inches tall, and I think they're about 28 across or so. Let's take a look. Yeah, about 28 and a half inches across. So good sized pot, lots of soil in here. Now, we probably didn't need to, but we do put a broken up concrete block at the bottom just for weight, not for drainage or anything like that. And then we fill the whole thing with soil. I suppose you could put something in there just to kind of take up some space. I know some people put like milk cartons and different things in there. We don't do any of that. We use the soil. And last year when we emptied them out, some of the containers that had some of the more vigorous plants in it had roots all the way to the bottom. So they used all the soil available. But again, we used vigorous types of plants in there and we learned some very valuable lessons. So the first one I'm going to do is right here, and in the center we have this Rockin' Blue Suede Shoes salvia, and this is a pretty vigorous variety. It's not as big and kind of overpowering as Rockin' Play in the Blues. We did have that one in there last year. It looked fantastic, but boy, at one point it got so big because it had so much space to grow that the arms actually got too heavy and one of them cracked off and that kind of thing. Wanted to try this variety. This one we hadn't carried before, so we wanted to give it a try. So that's going to be our center. And then this is also where we want to showcase this new geranium. It's the Mantra geranium. So it's not quite as big as the Calliope, which is our go-to, but it's bigger than, like we also carry the Mojo. They also say it's probably in the same kind of size as the Rocky Mountain, if you've ever seen that one. That's a very popular one, but its big claim to fame are these dark leaves. So having those darker leaves in many cases makes the color of the flower really stand up. And so I brought a couple other geraniums out just to show you the difference. So this geranium here is the Calliope dark red, and if you look, you can see how much darker the Mantra leaves are. It might not show up real well on the camera, but these definitely are darker than this other one. I love the flowers on these. This magenta color is really beautiful because it's not red, it's not pink, it's definitely kind of a cherry magenta red color. Really beautiful. I also picked up a Mantra pink, and the pink on this one's absolutely stunning. I love the color on it. I actually like the pink better than the Calliope pink and the Calliope hot pink. I just think it's just got a nicer flower color on it. And again, that darker leaf really does kind of create a nice foundation for the flowers to come up. And then I just had this other Calliope here. So this is a Calliope, I think it's lavender, and we put it with some Scaevola. And so you can see again the difference in the leaves. It might be subtle on camera, but you can definitely tell this is more of that kind of evergreen, rich green. This is much more of a brighter green, something that, you know, you're going to see kind of in the crayon box, whereas that one is a little more moody. And I have to say, this is also a great combination. If you are a bad waterer, put geraniums with Scaevola. You won't have to worry about watering. You know, you can miss it and it'll be very forgiving. So you can let them dry down quite a bit. So that's why I put that one here, because I wanted you to know about that. And this is one of the baskets that I had planted up in a previous video. And I'm just going to show you real quick. This Plectranthus is doing exactly what we want. It's cascading over the edge and it's sending up these new shoots, and those are going to start going over the edge. The lobelia is looking really good. Look at that beautiful blue flower. That's the Hot Plus lobelia, and then that geranium in there. So far, so good on this one, and it has not been a water hog so far. So that's a relief, because I was worried that Plectranthus might be sucking up a lot of water, but it hasn't been too bad. So I think having it in this 14-inch pot is the way to go. 5 plants in there, that's probably maxed out for what we've got in here. But I've been keeping it in full sun and it's been behaving very, very well. But again, this is a basket that could go down to even part shade, be really good. So sorry, I better get back to what I need to do. I'm never gonna get these planted if I keep talking like this. Okay, let's make a little room here. So I will start with my center, which is that salvia, and I think that's pretty much where it was. Now, I did make sure to moisten my soil at the bottom of this container as I was filling it, because it's really hard once there's that much soil in to know exactly how far your water is going down. So I wanted to make sure there was moisture all the way down. I didn't make it super wet, but I just wanted it to be really kind of damp to the touch. The water or the soil on top doesn't necessarily have quite as much moisture as that one. But so I'm just putting that in there. I think I want to make sure that I don't go too high with this. It's kind of hard to tell right now with the way I have it set up. So there, I've got that placed in the center. And then I think what I'll do next is put in my geraniums. And so as I've done in the past, I'm going to go kind of side to side. So I start kind of over here. Now, I am starting to get some heavy root action in here, but these are not root bound, so they're going to be just fine. I'm not going to break those up. I know a lot of people do. I don't have any objection to you doing that, but, oops. But I don't. I know that if I've got healthy soil with good fertilizer, that those roots are going to just break away from that little root ball that's there and keep going. So now I need to do this side, try to get it as even as possible. And if it was earlier in the season, I would definitely take all, snap off all the branches with blooms, only because I want to, put that energy into developing roots. But I don't know, right now I feel like I want to see these colors. And I also want tomorrow when staff come in, I want them to be able to see exactly what it looks like with some color, because then they're going to have their comments. Sometimes they're going to be, they may have positive things to say, or they might have suggestions on any changes. And I'd rather do that right now than wait until it starts to bloom 2 weeks from now or a week from now, and then have to, go through a little extra work for that to happen. Okay, so I've got 3 of them in, put the other one over here. And due to the nature of how plants grow, I'm not too worried if it's not exact. I'm not doing any geometry to perfectly center these, but that's going to work out really well there. And then, okay, I want to make sure that I'm putting soil between the center plant and these outside plants. Sometimes I miss that, and then there's kind of a gap, and it shows later on a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to lobelia. Let's see. It's not perfectly even, but and I chose the Hot Plus lobelia. What I like about this one, and these are a little gangly, but that's okay. They're going to start filling in pretty soon. And these I could trim back, but again, I'm not going to sacrifice the flowers right now. I'm just not up for it. Purpose for having this one is mainly, I love the size of the flowers on this. So this has larger flowers than most lobelia. So I really like that. And it's one of the varieties that does very, very well in hot weather. Lobelia has a reputation for kind of petering out when it gets hot. This variety, as long as it's getting water, it's going to do just fine. So there's a lot less pressure for you to be able to make it happen, or to, keep it watered or protect it from too much sun, that kind of stuff. This one, it just grows really well alongside some of these plants like the geraniums. And so I suppose you're not really able to see what I'm doing here. So I'll try to do a reach around. So that way, this one you get a front row seat. Again, I'm popping these out, and you might notice there's these little blonde seed things in there. Those are rice hulls. That's a byproduct of the rice industry. We use it on a lot of our plants just as a little bit of a mulch. It keeps the moisture in and sometimes keeps the bugs out as well. So that's what we use it for. Definitely not something required or anything like that. So don't feel like you've got to do something special or whatever. Now, once we get these all planted in, we're going to want to make sure that we water it in really well. So we want the top, I'm going to say 3 inches to make sure they get a good amount of water. That should mean that with the watering that I did below, that there's a good amount of moisture. Then I'm going to actually use my finger and stick it in here every day for the next couple of days, just because I don't want to overwater it. Like, I don't want this thing to become a big brick of mud, because that's not going to be good for the plants either. And people sometimes forget, when you first plant, you've got to be very observant. Once we get into the heat of summer, then that's when you're at that stage where it's like they need water every single day, but they might not actually need water when you first plant them. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Okay. I think this one's done. Not perfect by any means. I never plant anything perfect, but give you the little spin tour here. So you can see this salvia is looking really great. And this is one where if it starts getting out of control, you can cut it back and it will kind of refresh. It takes a little while. I have one that I had trimmed last week, and it's just now starting to get its new shoots up. So it comes back. So don't be afraid to trim it if you're finding that it's just getting out of control. And that's the case with all the rockin' series. They tend to rebranch and rebloom really well. So there you have it, folks. I'm going to turn it so that you get a good look at that mantra magenta geranium right there. And then that's the Hot Plus lobelia, along with our rockin' blue suede shoes. So, okay, for this one, I'm starting with 2 canna right in the middle. We put a canna in last year's pot and it did so well. It got so big, but we had it with so many other plants that it kind of didn't stand out the way we wanted to, but it just branched out and looked fantastic. Also gonna have it with these Super Cal Premium Petcoas. These are beautiful. This is a cross between a petunia and a calibrachoa. And what's nice about these is that they get you some different colors than what you get from regular petunias. Now, I'm not getting an exact match with this Scarlet Canova bronze leaf, but I think it's going to be fine when it's down here because this has a little bit of an orangey red cast to it. I think it's really beautiful, so I'm okay with it. And then I'm putting it with some Bandalista pineapple lantana, and this lantana gets very, very big, very, very vigorous variety, nice pillow of color. So what I'm going to do is get these right in the middle, and I'm going to put them right next to each other. I found that the canna that I had put in, I put 3 of them in a smaller container last year. They did really well when I crammed them together. They just need to have room for the roots to develop below and outward, and they did fine. So they're okay in close quarters. So I'm happy to report that I didn't have any issues with that. Now, canna roots are very, very strong and vigorous. They will push right through this pot. If I had these in here a little bit longer, they would crack this pot right open. And if I wanted to, I could break these roots apart, but I know that with the vigor of these roots that the canna have, I really don't need to. They're gonna just do their thing. And they're born to grow is what it is. So what I'm doing too, I don't know if this is, this is my strategy. I don't know if there's any like rhyme or reason to this technique, but I'm looking at how the babies are growing. Oh boy, I'm gonna need a minute to get some muscle into this. Oh, there we go. So yeah, these are definitely sturdy in there. So I look at how the babies are going, and I'm just putting them so that they're gonna be kind of going the wide way. I'm gonna put a little soil between them so that they can kind of duke it out that way. Try to get them as straight as possible. Losing a couple petals there, no big deal. And I think that's pretty well centered. And let's see. Might not be perfectly straight, but nice thing about canna is as they send up new ones, they kind of overcompensate for my mistakes. And then what I want to do is get my Super Cal in there. So let's dig a little hole for that. And Super Cal, you do not have to do any deadheading with them, and they're very, very weather tolerant. So they can get rained on, they can handle cold, they can handle the heat. So I like them, and you treat them just like a petunia, really. They don't have some of the finickiness that you'll find in a calibrachoa, but then they also don't have the sticky leaves that you find in a petunia. So they're a great plant. I'm very happy with them. So again, I'm going to go do opposite side to opposite side so that I keep myself pretty balanced. And when I finish this planting, I'm definitely going to have soil showing. And sometimes that's tough. You know, when you're planting and you see this empty space, you think, oh, I could put one more thing in there. But I want to believe myself and practice what I preach and say, just let the plants do the work. You don't have to fill every open space, because the plants will do that for you if you give them the chance to do that. So this is, only 6 plants in here, which for a, what did I say, a 28-inch container, you might think that's really not that much, but I've got vigorous varieties that are going to really fill out a lot. So I'm going to trust my plan here. And the truth is, if in, say, 2 or 3 weeks, I find that there's a bare spot or something going on, I can always stick something else in there. But I have a feeling there won't be any bare spots once these things start taking off. So we got to give them a little bit of time. I could trim the buds off of the petunias, but I found that, if a petunia has, if it's in a, big enough container and if it's developed enough, they can manage pretty well. And these are in good shape. Like, they're not real leggy or, looking poor. So I don't have to really worry. Let's just kind of keep them as they are. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Now, what I didn't show you in the last one is I do use a time-release fertilizer. So this is just an Osmocote product. And it is, like I said, a time release. It's a 90-day time release, but I found that the optimum time to use this are between 50 and 70 degrees. So under 50 degrees, the Osmocote doesn't release the nutrients, and above 70, it does degrade a little faster. I mean, not like crazy fast, it still gets the job done. So when it's over 70 degrees, especially at night, because we're talking about soil temperatures, and when the temperature is warm at night, your soil temperatures tend to be a lot higher. So when it's warmer at night, I usually I'm gonna say every 45 days or so. Sometimes I do it 30. What a lot of times I'll do is if I find one of these little pellets, I will squeeze it. So like right now, they're very firm, they're full of fertilizer. As they get diminished, or as it's used up and gets spent, they become hollow. And then when you squeeze them, they just pop. And it's a really noticeable pop. Now, if they're popping, it doesn't mean that there's not any fertilizer left, but it usually means that they're getting pretty close to being done. So that's always a good sign. Follow the instructions. This was a Osmocote 14-14-14. I think it's easier to find the Osmocote 10-10-10. Get that, that's gonna be fine. This is a little stronger, and you don't really need the stronger. This might actually be more than we need. So, you know, 10-10-10, that's gonna be just fine. And that's just a balanced, we call it a balanced fertilizer because the numbers are balanced across the three nutrients there. So, okay, well, I'm tempted to do one more, but I got other work to do tonight. So I'm gonna just try to do a couple of these every night. So I'll take you along for the ride. I'll have some more videos, and thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think of these two. I know on that other one, that lobelia looks a little crazy right now, but it should start behaving once it can take root again. If I need to, I'll trim it back, and that will give it another flush, a little bit more even maybe. So we'll see it. Usually that lobelia creates just a beautiful cloud, and I absolutely love it. So that's all for now. Talk to you guys soon.